It's a Sunday afternoon. You are 24 years old, and you have just made the most important money decision of your life. The last one you will let yourself make for 40 years. You moved $300 into an index fund. The whole market, one fund, no opinion required. And you set it to repeat on the first of every month, automatically, before you can ever have a say in it. Then you do the part almost nobody does. You open your phone and drag the app off the front screen, past the games and the weather and the flashlight, into a folder on the last page where your thumb has no reason to wander. You change the password to something long and forgettable, and you do not write it down. You are not hiding the money from anyone. You are hiding it from yourself. 41 years, one account, one unbroken decision that you will be tempted to break 1,000 times. You will not touch it. And the person you slowly become is not the person who bought the fund. It's the person who left it alone. You are 26, 2 years in, and you break your own rule exactly once. You dig out the password, you open the folder, and the balance reads about $7,800. You put in $7,200 of it yourself, $300 at a time, and the market added the other $600 while you were doing something else. $600 in 2 years. It is not a number that changes anything. A friend started the same year with the same idea and roughly the same money, and he has taken a very different road with it. He checks his in the morning and again at lunch. He moves it. He reads about a company at night and buys it before breakfast, sells it a month later when something louder comes along. When you tell him you're 600, he laughs, not unkindly. He's up more than that in a good week, he says. He is not lying. You close the folder and put the phone face down on the table. You will not open it again for a long time. That is the whole difference between you, and it is invisible, and it will stay invisible for years. You are 30. 5 years gone, and you have almost forgotten the account exists, which was the entire design. You know only what the automatic emails tell you, and you don't open those either. When you finally look, near your birthday, it reads about $28,000. You contributed $21,600 of it. The rest, $6,400, simply arrived, built out of dividends and time and the ordinary upward drift of every large company on Earth added together. You did not earn it at a job. You did not choose it. You were asleep for most of it. Your friend, meanwhile, has a spreadsheet now, and a system, and a strong opinion about interest rates. He tells you at dinner that the market feels toppy, that he's moved to cash to wait for the pullback. You nod. You have no idea whether he's right. You only know that you weren't invited to have an opinion because you gave yours away at 24 and never asked for it back. You are 33, and the year everyone warned about finally comes. The market falls, and then it keeps falling. The headlines find the word crash and use it on a loop. Your account, which had climbed past $56,000, drops toward 34 in a matter of weeks. On paper, $22,000 is simply gone. More than 6 years of your $300 deposits, erased in the time it took to read about it. You feel it the way you'd feel a stare that isn't there in the dark. And for the first time in 9 years, your thumb finds the folder on the last page of your phone on its own. You open the app. The number is worse in person than in your imagination. There is a button, red, that would end the feeling in one motion. You look at it for a long time. Your friend has already pressed his. He tells you he got out near the top, that he'll buy back in when it's safe, that people like you are going to ride it all the way down. Maybe he did get out near the top. You close the app without pressing anything. You do not sell a single share. The automatic $300 goes out on the first of the month, the same as always. Except now, every dollar of it buys more shares than it has in years, because everything is on sale and almost no one wants it. You are not brave. You are just absent. You have arranged your life so that the panic has no button to reach. The market comes back the way it always has so far. It does not send a signal when it turns. It just turns quietly while everyone is still afraid. Your friend who got out near the top does not get back in near the bottom. He waits for it to feel safe, and by the time it feels safe, it is expensive again, and he buys back higher than he sold. He will do a version of this 3 more times over the next 20 years, and each time it will cost him a little more than he can see. Selling low and buying high, one careful, reasonable decision at a time. You are 40. You look because a form at work asks you to, and the account reads about $122,000. Here is the line that quietly changes everything, and you almost miss it. Of that balance, $64,000 is growth, and $57,000 is money you put in. For the first time, the account has earned more on its own than you have fed it in 16 years of deposits. The thing you built is now bigger than the building of it. Up to now, you were pushing a stone up a hill, $300 at a time, and the hill barely moved. Now, the stone is rolling on its own, downhill in your direction. And your only job, the only job you have ever had here, is to not step in front of it. Your friend calls you that spring. 16 years of mornings and lunches and systems and pullbacks, and he is roughly where his contributions left him, a little above, a little tired. He asks, half as a joke, what you're in these days. You tell him the same fund you bought at 24. He goes quiet, and then he changes the subject, and you let him. You are 45. The account is around $208,000. You have contributed $75,000 of it across 21 years. You do not check it monthly or quarterly or even yearly with any reliability. It has become a fact about your life, like the color of your eyes, rather than an activity in it. This is the part nobody tells you about doing nothing for a very long time. It stops feeling like restraint and starts feeling like nature. The button no longer calls to you. You would have to go looking for it. Then comes the year the spreadsheet never warned you about. You are 47. In March, the company folds your role into someone else's, and the severance is thinner than the language around it. In May, the roof fails during a storm, and the number the contractor writes down has 5 figures in it. You are out of work for 7 months, longer than you have ever been, interviewing in stolen afternoons while performing calm you do not feel. And every one of those 7 months, there is a sealed account with more than $230,000 in it, sitting one forgotten password away, and it would solve everything by lunchtime. This is the real test, and it never looked like the crash did. The crash was loud and fast and over in weeks. This is quiet and slow and reasonable. And reasonable is the more dangerous of the two. You could crack it open just a little, just the roof, just 3 months of runway. No one would know, least of all your future self, who is decades away and does not vote. You do not open it. You live on the emergency fund you kept precisely so this account could stay sealed. You take a job that pays less and start over from a lower rung. You cancel the things that can be canceled and eat at home and let the year be hard. The sealed account never learns that any of this happened. It grows straight through your worst year, indifferent to it, because the market does not read your calendar and feels nothing about your March. That is the cruelty of it and the mercy of it at once. The one thing that could have rescued you fastest is the one thing you refused to spend. And refusing to spend it is the entire reason it will one day rescue you for good. You are 55. The account is around $540,000, and this year the temptation wears its friendliest face yet. The market has been extraordinary, everyone is up. A man you know sells a chunk of his to buy a boat and tells you he'd be a fool not to take some off the table after a run like this. Lock in the win. Enjoy it while he's young enough. It is the most reasonable sentence in the world. It is the same instinct as the crash, wearing the opposite costume. The belief that a number this large should be touched, handled, converted into something you can see. You let it stay a number. You do not sell to celebrate any more than you sold to survive. The boat is beautiful. You go on it twice. It is worth, you estimate later, about $400,000 of the money it was carved out of. Once you count the decades, that chunk would have kept growing. He does not do that math. Almost no one does. The cost of touching it is never the amount you take out. It's the amount that would have grown from what you took out for all the years you had left. You are 60. The account is around $850,000, and it now grows more in an ordinary year on its own than you earned in your best year of work. You have become a passenger to a thing you set in motion at 24 and simply refuse to interfere with. Your friend from the beginning retires the same year. Same starting money, same starting year, same market the whole way. He spent 36 years being right and right again, getting out and getting back in, paying the fees and the taxes on every gain he locked, and the price of every bottom he missed. He ends up with a little under $300,000, and he is proud of it, and he should be. And it is about a third of what you have for the crime of paying attention. You do not tell him your number. You have never told anyone your number. The number lived its whole life in a folder on the last page of a phone, behind a password you kept forgetting on purpose. You are 65. 41 years after the Sunday afternoon you buried the app, you dig out the password one final time. Slowly, because you know now that opening it is the only real risk left. The balance reads about $1,300,000. Sit with the three figures, because they are the whole story. The amount you actually put in, $300 a month for 41 years, is $147,000. The other $1,175,000 is growth. Money you never earned, never worked an hour for, never chose, never watched arrive. You did not pick a winner. You did not time a single turn. You bought the most ordinary thing available, and then you did the one thing almost no one can do with money, which is leave it completely alone while the world begged you, over and over, to act. The whole fortune was made in the spaces between your decisions. It was made every time your thumb hovered over the button and you set the phone back down. Somewhere right now, it is a Sunday afternoon, and someone 24 years old is holding a phone with a red button on it, or a green one, feeling the pull of the same thing you felt at every age. The certainty that a number this size, or this small, or falling this fast, or climbing this high, must be touched, must be handled, must be answered. They will check it in the morning and again at lunch. They will move it before a crash and buy back after. They will crack it open for the roof and the boat and the bad year, each time for a reason no one could argue with. They are not doing anything wrong. Every single decision will be reasonable. That was always the trap, and the door at the same time. The account was never asking to be managed. It was asking to be forgotten, in the one specific way that grows a life in the dark, while you are busy living the rest of it. You never got to feel the money working. You only ever got to choose whether to let it.